He thought owning a quiet lake cabin meant peace, privacy, and freedom. But for one Black man, that dream turned into a nightmare the moment an HOA president came knocking. She didn't ask politely, she demanded access, demanded control, demanded something that wasn't hers to take. And when he stood his ground, she lost it. What happened next wasn't just a clash over property. It exposed the ugly entitlement and racism that still poisons communities today. The question is, how far would she go? For Marcus, the lake cabin wasn't just wood and stone, it was sanctuary. He'd saved for years, pouring every ounce of hard work into owning a place where he could finally breathe. Tucked between tall pines and overlooking still waters, the cabin gave him something many dream of, but few ever reach: peace, privacy, and the quiet reward of success. On weekends, Marcus would drive out from the city, fishing rod in the back seat, his favorite records in the passenger seat. The cabin was where he could shut out the noise of the world, recharge, and feel at home in nature's embrace. For him, it wasn't about status, it was about freedom. But in a community governed by an HOA, freedom often came with strings. Rules, demands, and expectations whispered in every corner. And for Marcus, those whispers soon turned into pointed stares. Neighbors questioned if he belonged there, as if ownership wasn't enough. Still, Marcus tried to ignore the undertones, choosing solitude over conflict. He didn't know that one simple weekend, one simple no, would ignite a storm fueled not by property disputes, but by prejudice. The question was never about the cabin. It was about control, and someone was about to test just how much he was willing to give up. It started with a knock, sharp, repeated, not the kind of knock a neighbor makes, but the kind that demands. Marcus set his fishing pole aside, already uneasy. When he opened the door, there she stood, the HOA president. Perfectly pressed suit, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowed as if she were inspecting a trespasser rather than greeting a homeowner. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. She told him her guests were arriving soon, and she needed him to unlock his cabin so they could use it for the weekend. The demand landed like a slap. Marcus laughed at first, thinking it must be a mistake, but her face didn't change. She wasn't joking. When he refused, her smile cracked into anger. "You'll regret this," she hissed before storming down the steps. Marcus stood frozen, wondering how his own property, his sanctuary, had suddenly become someone else's entitlement. The next day, the stares started. Neighbors who once waved now looked away. Others whispered as he walked by, shaking their heads like he had done something wrong. One evening, a car slowed in front of his cabin, headlights flooding his porch before rolling away without a word. Marcus told himself not to overthink it, but deep down, he knew this was more than an HOA issue. This was about him, about who he was, and the fact that some people couldn't stand it. Soon, letters appeared in his mailbox. Anonymous notes claiming he was breaking rules, accusing him of things that made no sense. Too many guests, too much noise. Even improper landscaping, lies stacked on lies, designed to wear him down. And then another knock. Louder this time. When Marcus opened the door, the president wasn't alone. Two men in suits flanked her, arms crossed, silent but threatening. She didn't bother with explanation. She simply said, "Last chance. Open the cabin or we'll handle this another way." Marcus's chest tightened. Alone against three, he felt the weight of the moment pressing in. He could give in or he could stand his ground. Either way, he knew the battle had only just begun because this wasn't about rules. It wasn't even about the cabin. It was about power and the way people like him were never supposed to say no. And with each refusal, with each stand, Marcus could feel something building, something dangerous. The question wasn't if the storm would break, it was when it all came crashing down one Saturday evening. Marcus had just lit a small fire in the stone pit out back when flashing lights cut through the trees. Red, blue, kind of lights that make your stomach drop before you even know why. Within seconds, 3 police cars rolled into his driveway, gravel crunching under their tires. The HOA president was there waiting. Arms folded, lips twisted into a satisfied smile. She had called them claiming Marcus was trespassing in a cabin that wasn't his. Marcus's heart pounded as officers stepped out, hands already hovering near their belts. One of them barked, "Step away from the property." His mind reeled. This was his property. His name was on the deed. But in that moment, none of that seemed to matter. Neighbors began gathering on the road, whispering, recording on their phones. Some smirked. Others just watched in silence. The weight of 100 eyes pressed down on him, turning his home into a stage and him into the villain of a story he didn't write. When Marcus tried to explain, the president shouted over him, "He broke in. He refuses to leave." Her words, sharp and confident, carried more weight than his truth. An officer stepped closer, hand now firmly on his holster. "Sir, put your hands where we can see them." Marcus froze. He knew the danger of that command. One wrong move, one quick gesture, and his story could end in seconds. His chest tightened, breath shallow, as the fire behind him crackled like a cool reminder. He was standing on his own land, treated like a criminal for daring to exist, and in that unbearable silence, one question echoed in his mind. Would this be the night he lost everything? His freedom, his home, his life. The night didn't end with handcuffs, but the scars ran deep. After tense minutes of questioning, after flashing his deed and repeating his truth again and again, the officers finally backed down, reluctantly, slowly, not because they believed him, but because the evidence left them no choice. The president's smirk faltered as the lies unraveled, but her arrogance never did. She walked away without consequence, leaving Marcus shaken in the glow of patrol lights. He stayed at the cabin that night, but it didn't feel the same. The quiet he once treasured was replaced by a heaviness, a constant reminder that even ownership, even proof, didn't shield him from suspicion, that his very presence, his very existence, was still seen as negotiable in the eyes of some in the weeks that followed. Neighbors whispered apologies behind closed doors, but few spoke up publicly. The HOA president remained in power, and Marcus was left to live with the knowledge that safety in his own home had been stripped away in a single evening. But his story doesn't stand alone. Across America, Black homeowners, workers, and families face the same poisonous mix of entitlement and prejudice, questioned, doubted, threatened, even when they've done everything right. Marcus's cabin was just one battleground in a much larger war for dignity. So the question lingers not just for him, but for all of us. How many more times will belonging be challenged? How many more moments of humiliation, of danger, of injustice will it take before change is more than a promise? Because no one should have to fight for the right to exist in peace. Not in their neighborhood, not in their home, not anywhere.